And not a minute late for once.
I know, we made it right on time.
Hello, Angela. Hello, Dan. How are you two on this lovely afternoon?
Welcome to the stream. Wearing these weird little sock things. And my toes keep popping out of them.
What? Oh, are those for like,
They're for like wearing flats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna
yeah.
say, those are like not covering anything.
Nope, they're for flats, that's why.
They're toe socks.
Pretty much.
That's about it.
Thank you. Doing something a little different today.
Yeah, you haven't done that in a while.
Trying to kind of look nice on the stream for a change.
You always look nice on the stream.
Oh, not when I'm wearing my jammies and all that jazz. I don't. Come on now.
Even when you're wearing your jams.
Oh, thank you. Let's move that a little bit. Ah.
Hey, Lucas, how's it going?
Oh, welcome, welcome. Just let everybody get in and get situated and settled.
And read some All the Young Dudes.
Get through some All the Young Dudes today. See how Lupin's handling his jealousy and hormones.
I'm gonna say as well as any other teenage boy.
Probably. We'll see if Sirius and Mary end up being just as bad as Wan and Lav.
Will Lupin set a flock of vicious birds on them?
I don't know.
Or will he just eat them?
Or will he just eat them? I was kind of bummed he didn't just attack Sirius when they did their little adventure together.
Now you know how I felt about some of my predictions when we were reading through
the actual series.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I also think it's fun how they're trying to figure out their nicknames for each other. And the whole Scabbers and Snuffles reference were pretty awesome. I'm trying to remember who called Sirius Snuffles. Was it James that called him Snuffles in the last one?
Yeah.
Because if it was James that called him Snuffles in the last one, it kind of, when you think about it, fast forward to book 4, and then Sirius tells Harry to call him Snuffles.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sad, bittersweet moment, if you think about it.
It is a little bit.
It's a little sad. We will get to the war eventually. It will happen sometime.
Hopefully soon.
We'll get there. I know we got 2 more years of Hogwarts to go.
Well, like you were saying,
after this,
you wanted to kind of sprinkle in some other fan fictions here and there.
Hello, Katie. Welcome.
Hello.
So glad you could make it.
Feels like it's just been too long. Because this is really like just reading an entire
Harry Potter series. It is. Although we are getting through it a little faster than we got through Harry Potter. So
we are.
You know, there is that.
That's true. The live streaming thing helps.
Yeah. At least once a week is definitely good.
Oh my god, I stole a pistachio and now I'm paying for it because I have little pieces of pistachio like stuck in my teeth.
You should have just waited until I made the cake.
I know.
It's terrible.
Darn me.
I know. Oh, remind me, I have to pull out butter and eggs.
Okay, will do.
They need to be room temperature before I start to make the cake.
Don't you wish you were Mrs. Weasley and you could just float them over?
Yes. If I was Mrs. Weasley, I could probably also warm them up to room temperature in a matter of seconds.
That's true.
And separating...
But we are to never do fire magic.
We are...
You haven't read the Witcher series yet, though, so you don't quite get that.
No, I don't.
You should totally read it. It's such a good series.
I will. No, I was going to say if I was Mrs. Weasley, separating eggs would probably be super easy.
Oh, yeah.
You could probably just versus what I have to do with the
Yeah, again, the
all the
snot on your hand.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie.
Oh,
Wow. Maybe I
compliment
should
number 2.
I know. Maybe I should do this more often. Jeez.
It's your new thing.
I guess
The
so.
hairstyle like that.
I know. I should do it more often.
Oh man, I was gonna say something about the. Oh yeah. So if you think you have to keep track of a lot of people in Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
The Witcher is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More characters?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
It's not even necessarily more characters. It's just a lot of characters are mentioned at once, and then they're not mentioned for like an entire book, and then all of a sudden at the end of the next book they're mentioned and you're supposed to remember everything that happened before.
I mean, Martin kind of does that.
Yeah, there are definitely places
like Flement Brax.
When I was reading The Witcher, it just seemed like Andrei Sapkowski was just guilty of doing that much more often.
Oh,
a lot
okay.
more frequently.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, thank you, Katie. I should do it more often. I'll make it a point to do it more often.
And I would not have remembered his first name if the book wasn't right there.
Wow. Loving this book series. Can't even remember the author.
Well, I remember it's Sapkowski, but I forgot his first name.
It's terrible. We all remember what JK stands for.
Yeah, we do. Everyone knows that.
What JK stands for?
Mm-hmm. Just kidding?
Ha ha ha. Dan makes a point. Sirius is mentioned in chapter 1 of book 1, and then he's not mentioned again until book 3.
That's true. But JK doesn't drop as many character names as Sapkowski.
No. I think the volume of characters in Harry Potter is far smaller than A Song of Ice and Fire for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming The Witcher as well.
Yeah. And I think
yes, just kidding, Rowling. That is her name.
That's right. Just kidding, rolling on the floor laughing.
Oh my god.
Okay, so am I just gonna sit here feeling like an idiot, or are you just gonna show me some mercy and let me know
what JK stands for? Joanne Kathleen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How was I supposed to know that?
Did you never?
No,
oh,
I have
wow.
never. Whatever you're gonna say, I never did because I did not know.
Okay, now you know.
I'm guessing that's her actual name.
That's her name. Her name is Joanne Kathleen Rowling. She chose the author name J.K. Rowling because she felt that if people automatically knew she was a lady writer, her books wouldn't sell as well.
Oh, okay.
Because that is a thing. But J.K. Rowling could be a guy.
Yeah, that's true.
And when you're...
Well, there was that... there was a female writer who won this big award this past year.
Oh, see, okay, Kathleen isn't actually her middle name.
Oh, okay.
I knew Katie would know. I just...
Oh, it was her grandmother's name.
Oh, okay.
Paying homage.
So that's her pen name. It's just her pen name. But either way.
Oh, thank you, Dan. I wasn't the only one who didn't know. I feel much better. See?
Well, I didn't know it wasn't her real middle name, so I just automatically made the assumption. So there's that too. So Katie is the only one who really knows.
Yes, we all bow before Katie's knowledge.
Yeah,
of
we all messed that up. Either way,
as I was gonna say, there was a female writer who won this big award this past year. I think she was a Spanish writer, and when she came to accept the award, they found out that the books were actually written by 3 men, and this was just their pen name for the author.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, Katie is the winner. Well, the Warrior Cats books that I read, they're all by Aaron Hunter. That is a pseudonym because the people that write the Warrior Cats books, there's like 7 or 8 different writers who write the Warrior Cats books, and one would write this one, and then the next one would write this one, and then the next one would write this one. So,
and that's a big book you wanted to read on the channel for a while now.
The Warrior Cats.
Yeah,
I know. Wonder how everyone would feel about the Warrior Cats.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I've never read them, so I've just heard from what you tell me. That's very brutal.
Warriors is very violent. Yes. It's very violent. It's Game of Thrones Cats edition. Cats die left, right, and center all the time. No one is safe. Old cats, young cats, kittens, everyone dies all the time.
Okay, so Game of Thrones with cats.
One cat kills another cat, and like...
Game of boxes. If they fits, they sits.
One cat kills another cat and like drags her body across the forest floor so that this pack of dogs will catch on to the scent, and the blood in the body will lead them to the other cats, and that cat is hoping that the dogs will rip apart his enemies.
Okay.
So yes, Warriors is violent.
I see that.
In another book, there's a puma that's like stalking a group of cats and like just killing them for pleasure.
Oh god.
Yeah. Katie's like, I think I'll pass.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know about that. That's pretty intense.
They're good though. There's these spirit cats. There's like a whole spirituality thing to it. It's good. It's just very violent.
Who do the cats pray to?
StarClan.
Oh, StarClan. Oh.
Because there's different clans.
Did they rip off Lion King with that?
No.
The stars of the kings who came before. Believe in yourself, Simba.
You can't talk about StarClan. It's complicated.
Simba.
The medicine cats can talk and communicate with StarClan, and there's prophecies and all kinds of stuff.
Do they come in clouds?
No. They visit them in dreams.
As giant clouds?
No. No.
Oh man, I'm just picturing
the star. They call all the stars in the sky. It's the home of StarClan, and they call it Silver Pelt. It's where all the cats in StarClan live.
Oh,
once they die.
Sounds like I wrote it with all the puns in there.
But there's also Cat Hell.
Oh, that's no good.
Which I was just introduced to in the second book series, Cat Hell, where bad cats go. Not all cats get to go to StarClan.
No?
No.
They go to... I don't know.
There's no name for it yet. Because it's like a mystery what it is right now, where I am in the series. It's like a mystery to what this place actually is.
Oh.
Lion King was cultural appropriation. I will tolerate no bad talk about the Lion King on this channel.
No?
No. Also, don't know how Lion King is cultural appropriation.
Well, then I shouldn't talk about what a douche Scar is.
He's a douche, and I love him.
I mean, you do have a point, though. Scar is the only Disney villain who has, like, accomplished his goals.
That's right. Give Scar props. He is the only successful
But I feel
Disney
like
villain.
Scar accomplished his goals, and then he was just kind of like, oh, well, I don't really know what to do now. I didn't think I was going to get this far. And then things just fell apart.
The Cats movie. I loved the Cats movie.
Didn't watch it.
The only person who liked the Cats movie, but I've seen the Cats musical, and it's pretty awesome. So yeah, Cat Heaven is StarClan, where StarClan Silver Pelt is like Cat Heaven.
Oh, okay.
Which I get why it sounds like the Cats movie, because in the musical, everyone's vying for the opportunity to go to the Heaviside layer which is and be born again.
Do the cats really want to go to heaven when we know that all dogs go to heaven?
Well, they don't call it heaven. It's Silverpelt. Dogs go someplace else, I guess.
Oh, okay.
They hate dogs.
Well, yeah, but I was making a joke because the movie All Dogs Go to Heaven.
I have a thing for Taylor Swift, so it was fine for me. She was in that movie for like 5 minutes.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She's in the movie for like 5 minutes.
Buy the movie?
Yeah, I have it. Okay. I have it. Yeah. She plays Bomberlina.
Bomberlina?
Yep, that's her name in the Cats movie, Bomberlina.
Okay.
And Jason Derulo plays Rum Tum Tiger. Rum Tum Tiger. Sorry, Rum Tum Tiger. And then
that's fun to say.
Oh my god, James Corden plays Bustopher Jones.
Bustopher Jones.
It's a great name, isn't it? Yeah. Bustopher Jones.
James Corden is pretty funny. I've only seen like
in fact, he's remarkably fat. That's part of the song. The Bustopher Jones song.
Well, they get along.
Yeah, she did. She helped with the score. I forgot about that. She did help with the music for the film.
Who?
Taylor Swift. She did play a part in the orchestration of the.
Makes sense.
Of the movie. Like in your house.
For the most part.
What the heck? I checked in early now. We haven't started the story, and we've been BSing for a hot minute, so you're good.
We're talking about the Cats movie right now.
Yeah, we're talking about the Cats movie. Oh yes, Katie sent me a clip of the Kimmy Schmidt episode where they parody the Cats musical. She sent me the clip. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why they all have ridiculous names. Let's see. Bustopher Jones, Rum Tum Tiger, Bomberlina, McCavity.
McCavity? Does he eat a lot of sugar?
McCavity is the bad cat.
Oh. He's the rotten tooth.
He's the criminal cat. Grisabella, Mungo Jerry, and Rumple Teaser.
Rumple Teaser?
Yeah. Deuteronomy. Old Deuteronomy. Let's see. I know I can think of more. Jenny Anydots.
Yeah, where'd she get that name from?
I know a Gumby cat. Her name is Jenny Anydots. She sits and sits and sits and sits. And that's what makes a Gumby cat.
We have a lot of Gumby cats, though.
But when the day's hustle and bustle is done, the Gumby cat's work has but hardly begun.
You know, what if...
She teaches mice to read in the nighttime.
What if one of the Marauders turned into a cat and Lupin couldn't control himself, being a canine, decides, I'm gonna chase you. Probably be Wormtail.
Yeah. I couldn't see any of the Marauders turning into a cat. They just don't have that kind of personality.
No?
No.
Do you think Snape would turn into a cat? He kind of seems like he has personality.
He could potentially be. I could see him being a cat, but McGonagall is a cat. I don't know.
I guess that's a debate for another time.
That is a debate for another time.
Why don't we jump into all the young dudes and see what's going on?
Oh, you don't want to talk about cats anymore?
Well, I mean, talking about cats is great, but living with you, that seems to be a constant conversation we have.
What would Lily have turned into?
That's a good question.
Well, her Patronus is a doe. But your Patronus and your Animagus form aren't the same thing.
That's true. You know, was hers a doe because James was a stag?
Yeah, I think that's the connection.
Or does she learn her Patronus before she falls in love with James?
Maybe we'll find out.
Maybe we will, but it's not canon, so I wasn't
sure. Well,
sure.
maybe she had a different Patronus.
Oh yeah, that's right. It changes,
because it can change.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
And I think it's definitely pretty obvious why it's a doe. I don't know what would have happened first. I don't know if she would have learned her Patronus, or if she would have learned the identity of James's animagus form first. I don't know.
Maybe she sneaks out and runs into them. Maybe Lupin almost attacks her.
And maybe that's why Snape is gonna
sneak in and...
Yeah, I don't know.
He's gonna slay a werewolf.
Maybe. Well, let's see. It's Christmas time in this chapter, so let's see what happens at Christmas.
Let us see.
Let's start.
What do they get for Christmas this year?
I don't know.
Other than another great adventure.
Okay, here we go. Ooh. Woo, milestone, chapter 80.
Almost halfway.
Almost halfway, guys. Chapter 80, 5th year. 'Twas the night before Christmas.
All through the house. Not a creature was stirring. Not even Wormtail.
Saturday, 20th of December, 1975. I will literally curse both of you with a lip-locking charm if you plan to do that all the way to London, Lily said, raising her wand to Sirius and Mary. Her deadpan expression was very hard to read, and the couple quickly disentangled. Mary stuck out her tongue cheekily. You too, Wormy. James held up his own wand, grinning at Lily like a lunatic. Peter and Desdemona moved apart too, smiling sheepishly. The carriage was extremely cramped. Remus was squashed up against the window next to James, with Sirius and Mary by the door. On the opposite row of seats, Lily and Marlene were squeezed in beside Peter and Desdemona. We're just saying goodbye, Mary smirked, laying her head on Sirius's shoulder. It's it's only 2 weeks and you can write to each other, Lily replied smartly. Actually, better if none of you write to me, Sirius said. I'm not exactly likely to get letters anyway, and unless you want my dear mother reading them. You've got the mirror, though, James said seriously. You can get in touch with us if you need to. Yeah, of course. Sirius smiled at him reassuringly, patting his breast pocket. Remus stared out the window, pressing his forehead on the cold glass. The train moved sluggishly down to London. They passed the phone box he'd used to call Grant, and he felt a pang of guilt for not phoning him again since then. He'd been so busy with everything else in the end that he hadn't sent the Christmas card. Grant was supposed to be studying at the local secondary modern, but at 16 he could leave whenever he wanted. Remus tried to convince him over the summer to finish his CSEs, even maybe take a GCE if he could, but Grant had just laughed at him, as if education was one of Remus's particular eccentricities. Matron usually got the St. Edmund's Boys apprenticeships where they showed an aptitude for handiwork, but Remus couldn't remember Grant ever mentioning the things he was good at, only the things he struggled with, like maths and English. And Remus couldn't very well tell Grant any of his best subjects, could he? The boys who didn't get apprenticeships had to find their own way once they turned 18. Remus wasn't sure. Oi, Mooney! Wakey, wakey! Sirius barked, wrenching Remus out of his daydream. Trolley's here. Don't want to miss lunch, do you? No, cheers. Remus turned back to the noisy, over-warm carriage where James was buying at least 12 pasties on top of all the sweets they could manage. We'll never get through all this, Lily scolded, smiling slightly. You've clearly never seen Mooney eat, James winked. Oh, I wish I had your metabolism, Remus, Desdemona said. My mother's always telling me I ought to start dieting. Nothing wrong with having curves, Mary said, taking a huge bite of her own pasty. Gives them something to hold on to. The girls all giggled, even Lily, who was blushing hard. Remus wished the journey would soon be over. Of course, as the train pulled into King's Cross, he felt a horrible twist to his insides as Sirius fell quiet, his face pinched and pale. The girls and Peter all hurried to gather their things, eager to meet their families on the platform. Remus and James were deliberately slow, waiting until Mary had finally left the car, then helping Sirius with his own bags. "Check in every evening, right?" James gripped his best friend's shoulder. If I don't hear from you, I'm sending help." Sirius grinned gratefully. "I'll be fine. Nothing I haven't done before." "Please be careful," Remus burst out. "Keep your head down. Don't be so... you." Sirius laughed. "Sound advice, Moony." Remus lowered his gaze, smiling bashfully. He wanted to hug him, but it was too late. Regulus was standing in the open doorway, arms folded. "Ready?" Sirius nodded and did not turn back. James and Remus watched the brothers leave. They were almost the same height now. Regulus had a slimmer build, perhaps, but from behind they could be twins. "He'll be okay," James said, and Remus instinctively knew he was reassuring himself more than anything else. After a moment, James was back to normal. He grabbed his suitcase handle, and Remus's too, without a word, and exhaled. "Come on then, Moony. Let's do Christmas." Wednesday, 24th of December, 1975. It did not snow over Christmas of 1975 either. Fortunately, it didn't rain, which meant, to James anyway, that conditions were perfect for lots and lots of Quidditch practice. Remus gave in and did as he was instructed. It took both their minds off Sirius. Remus was never going to be any great shakes at flying, but after the first few days in the air, he at least wasn't terrified of falling anymore. He even managed to get a quaffle past Peter once. Between drills, the boys enjoyed all of the festive trimmings Remus had come to expect from a typical Potter Christmas. Tinsel, lights, wrapping paper, late nights eating buttered tea cakes, hearty dinners, and bright mornings. Mr. and Mrs. Potter were as delightful as ever, though it was evident that their ongoing involvement in Dumbledore's resistance movement was taking its toll. Mr. Potter didn't join them outside as much, but locked himself in his study. When he emerged, he moved stiffly, his back bent, no longer the sprightly mischief-maker he'd been only 3 short years ago. Mrs. Potter, who was still everything a mother ought to be, had more silver hair than Remus remembered, and dark rings under her eyes. She still always had a smile for the boys when they came in from the cold. "James, go and get your father. It's time for supper. Have you spoken to Sirius today? Send him our love, will you? Remus, you look frozen through. Go and stand by the fire for a little bit and warm up. I've put out an extra chop for you, so make sure you eat it. I don't know how you boys keep growing the way you do. Hello, Peter, love. Staying for tea? Make sure your mother knows." Excuse me. Sorry. They were speaking to Sirius as much as possible. Every night, Remus and James would kneel on James's bed with the mirror lying open between them and wait for their friend to appear. It was always an immense relief when he did, those wicked blue eyes and cheeky grin promising them he was okay. "Reg's being a complete prat as usual, and Mother is an eternal delight, but nothing out of the ordinary." The trouble was, Remus thought, pursing his lips, neither he nor James really understood what ordinary meant in the Black household, so there was no way of knowing how much danger Sirius was in. "Can't say much," Sirius would whisper after his brief updates. "Anyone could be listening. Bloody portraits of spies here." He looked tired. "Wish we could just go and get him," James would say hopelessly. "Me too," Remus nodded along. Every night the same. The final night they heard from Sirius was the night right before Christmas Eve. Was that the eve of Christmas Eve? Remus found himself thinking childishly. Something Grant might say to make Remus laugh. The irony of it all was that on that night, the 23rd of December 1975, Sirius was in high spirits. In fact, Remus might go as far to say he sounded positive, optimistic. "They're being okay today, actually," he smiled up through the compact mirror. "Actually sort of nice, friendly. Dad smiled at me. I don't know if Dad has ever smiled at me. They keep talking about moving past our problems as a family." "That's good," James smiled back encouragingly. "Maybe the war has knocked some sense into them."
Traditional Christmas Eve dinner tomorrow night, Sirius said. All the blacks in one place. Joy. I should be able to get away for our usual time. Just don't laugh at my stupid dress robes, okay?
James and Remus smiled and promised not to laugh. They went to bed that night feeling reassured, looking forward to their Christmas Eve plans. These plans, of course, involved more Quidditch practice, but thankfully only an hour of it. Afterwards, Mrs. Potter called them in and requested they fetch the nice china from the attic, along with the big Christmas tablecloth. With everything going on, I'm so behind this year, she murmured, stirring a bowl of mincemeat ready for pies. Remus noticed that her fingernails were bitten down to the quick. Have we got many people coming this year, Mum? James asked as he carefully unloaded the box of china plates and bowls, handing them to Remus for a quick rinse under the tap. Well, Darius, of course. He's always show for a hot dinner. He'll always show for a hot dinner if one's on offer. Remus scowled but said nothing. Mrs. Potter continued. I've invited the Boneses and the Tonkses, but everyone seems to want to keep to themselves this year. The Pettigrews will be over, I imagine. Perhaps some from the ministry, your father's friends. Dumbledore? No, dear, he'll be busy. Remus was glad of this. Dumbledore was so serious these days, and his name always seemed to be spoken with a sense of dread. He brought bad news. The Potters were such nice people, why couldn't they invite the nice teachers, like Professor Flitwick, or even Professor Farrox? Though Remus mused as he wiped down a large serving dish, he was probably just plain old Mr. Farrox now. Or Leo. That was his given name, according to Mary. Leo Farrox. Sirius Black. Maybe Remus just had a thing for cool names. After dinner, James and Remus convened on James's bed again at their usual time for their appointment with Sirius. But when James opened the mirror, nothing appeared, only their own reflections. He had that dinner, Remus said, though it didn't feel right. He might be late. So they waited. After half an hour, most of which they spent in anxious silence, James tried speaking softly into the mirror. Sirius? He called. Are you there? Nothing. I don't like it, James said. Remus didn't know what to say. Come on, James got up. I'm telling Dad. Mr. Potter frowned when he heard, but wasn't much help. You can't jump to any conclusions, James. You said all was well yesterday. Yeah, but I've been to Black family banquets before, Mr. Potter said thoughtfully. They run late, especially if Orion is presiding. Man likes to hear himself speak, not unlike Sirius. We'll wait up a bit longer, Mrs. Potter said, smoothing down her son's hair lovingly. Let's have some tea. Come sit by the fire. They did. Gully the house elf came in with the tea tray, laden with the steaming pot and a plate of biscuits too, but neither James nor Remus was in the mood to eat. The hour grew later and later. The Potters had a grandfather clock in the hall, and Remus could hear it ticking away mercilessly. The compact mirror lay open in James's lap, reflecting only the flickering orange of the fireplace. Even James's parents looked nervous now. Mr. Potter got up a few times and paced. Mrs. Potter kept bustling about the room, straightening the ornaments on the mantelpiece or rearranging the brightly packaged presents under the tree. At 11 o'clock an owl came screeching out of the black night toward the living room window, and it was only Mrs. Potter's quick thinking and speedy wand work that stopped it from shattering the glass. It was a huge, stately eagle owl, the same kind the blacks used. It wailed, agitated, and clearly exhausted from its journey. James wrestled the note from its leg and tore it open. His eyes widened, and he let out a strange, strangled noise. Remus jumped up to read over his shoulder. He's in trouble. Please help. R.A.B. Effie, send for Dumbledore at once, Mr. Potter said, joining Remus at James's side. Remus began to tremble. He'd never known terror like it. He wanted to scream, shout, hit something. James was the same, he could tell. He turned white as a sheet, reading that note over and over. We need to go, James said, his voice broken. We need to go and get him, now! We will, Mr. Potter said. Just stay calm. Remus laughed. It was hugely inappropriate, but no one seemed to notice. Stay calm. There was no time for anything else.
The fireplace crackled loudly, then blazed bright emerald green. Mr. Potter put his arms round both boys and pulled them back sharply. A chaos of noise and shouts echoed through the chimney flue from another fireplace and another house. The body of Sirius Black tumbled out of the flames and onto the carpet at their feet.
Wow, okay. So, Mr. Potter was wrong.
Everything was not fine.
Everything was indeed not okay. A random dude. Yeah, like Dan said, this is a fanfic. All the young dudes.
Yes, it is a story about them.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, Dan's got us covered.
Yep. Popped up as soon as I said it.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
Bit of a slow chapter, but definitely setting up something big, because now what the heck happened to Sirius?
Well, canonically, Sirius runs away from home and lives with the Potters, so, like, they have to do that.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering
what happened.
Why?
He's like unconscious.
Yeah.
It seems like he's unconscious, and then Regulus is like, he's in trouble.
Yeah, even Regulus is reaching out to the Potters when it's forbidden.
Mm-hmm. R.A.B.
Or sign R.A.B.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
See what I mean? See what I mean? Should we jump right in and see what happens?
Yeah, we can. I just wanted to say, I agree with Dan. That would be very cool if Sirius was wearing the robes that Ron wears.
Oh, if it's the same ones.
Yeah. That
would be pretty funny, right? That'd be great.
Coincidence?
I think not. There is a content warning in this chapter.
Okay. So far, they at least haven't been too bad.
No, they haven't.
Content warning. Nothing too serious.
Serious. Themes of domestic abuse.
Oh, if you've read the original Harry Potter, that doesn't affect you anymore.
I was gonna say, if you read Harry Potter,
you
read the first 2 chapters of any Harry Potter book.
You're new to it at this point if you read through Harry Potter. Domestic. So he has some scars from his mom. Who cares? That's baby stuff. Spend a few more years in the closet and then we'll talk, alright?
Right? Get locked in a cupboard for an entire day and try to figure out how you're going to use the bathroom.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They just give him a bucket? They just give him a bucket when they lock him in there?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, they probably would want to, because otherwise it's going to smell. And they're the type of people who would be disgusted. Their house doesn't smell perfect. Petunia would go crazy.
That's true. And what if they gave him a bucket and it got knocked over and there was pee all over the floor?
I mean, they would make Harry clean it up, obviously.
Yeah.
He would be scrubbing it up for the rest of the day.
Has to hold it until the scheduled time. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe he just opens up the window.
What if he's got a poop?
I don't know.
Well, she does always look like she's constantly smelling something gross.
That's true, yeah.
So
maybe that's why she cleans so much.
Maybe.
There's something wrong with her sense of smell and she just constantly smells something nasty.
Could be. I don't know. Let's see what's happening.
It's a theory.
Let's see what happens immediately next. Shall we?
Yes.
Chapter 81. 5th year. Unforgivable.
Anyone who was around in the early days of YouTube.
Unforgivable.
If you don't instantly get a flashback.
Unforgivable.
When you hear Unforgivable.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. That was year 1 YouTube.
I know. That's classic
the
YouTube.
Viral video.
I didn't go there right away, but now I went there. I went to Unforgivable Curse first, but Now I am there.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Remus, James, and Mr. Potter ran forward at once. Remus collapsed to his knees, reaching for Sirius first. He was lying face down, black hair pouring like blood on the red carpet. Remus didn't even think, just rolled him over. His face was pale, his eyes closed, but he was alive. Yes, Remus could hear Sirius's heartbeat pounding hard behind his ribs. He could smell the stink of fear mixed with adrenaline. Sirius! James was there too, pressing his head to Sirius's chest to listen. He's alive, Remus said, his voice sounding strange. He was clutching Sirius's shoulders still, where he'd turned him. He couldn't let go, his hands fisting the fine velvet dress robes. Effie! Mr. Potter was shouting. Quickly! He bent over Sirius. Stand back, boys, give him some air. Sirius stirred slightly, his eyelashes fluttered, but nothing more. What's wrong with him? Remus asked the room desperately. Mr. Potter was guiding him away. He had to let go. He crawled backwards, crab-like, as Mrs. Potter rushed in. He knew his legs wouldn't stand just yet.
Oh, you're good. It's just trying to get up.
Yeah, Euphemia Potter was on the carpet in seconds, pulling Sirius's head into her lap. He must have made another noise because she started whispering to him, sweet small things. Shh now, love. I'm here. You're safe. Shh. Remus felt his eyes well up, drew his legs under his chin and wrapped his arms round them. What was happening? He looked over at James sitting opposite him on the living room floor, just as shocked, just as frightened. There was a distant crack outside, and Mr. Potter left the room, returning moments later with Dumbledore. He seemed to bring the cold in with him. Remus felt the chill settle in his bones, despite the fire which continued to blaze. Moody's outside, the old man told James's father. Protective charms, everything in his arsenal. No one else will be coming here tonight. Good, Remus thought. Good. Lock us all up in here. Never let anyone near him again. How is he, Effie? Dumbledore stood over Mrs. Potter, who was still cradling Sirius. She was performing some kind of magic, her eyes closed, wand running over the unconscious boy's body. Her lips were moving fast without making a sound. She eventually looked up, more shaken than Remus had ever seen her, fiery rage in her eyes. He'll live, she said. He needs rest. Was it? Mr. Potter looked nervous. Mrs. Potter closed her eyes again and nodded. Cruciatus. James covered his face with his hands. Remus just felt empty, as if everything that had ever made any kind of sense to him had rung out. The torture curse. Boys, Mr. Potter said suddenly, sharply, looking at James and Remus. I know you want to stay, but we need you to go to bed just now. There's nothing you can do for Sirius at the moment. But Dad! James started, climbing shakily to his feet. There were tears in his eyes. James? James, Mrs. Potter said from the floor. No. Bed. She didn't shout, but every man in the room seemed to shrink slightly. There was no question of disobeying her. Remus wasn't sure how he got up, whether Dumbledore helped him or whether he did it himself. Nor was he sure when he left the room how he left the room Sirius was in. It seemed like hours later he was standing on the first floor landing with James. Gully was lighting candles throughout the house, moving silently. The portraits along the staircase were sleeping. James held open his bedroom door and Remus went inside without a word. They lay on the bed, side by side, over the covers, still in their clothes. They'd been sitting on the same bed only 2 or 3 hours before, waiting for Sirius to tell them he was okay. In the dark, James and Remus collected themselves, giving each other the time they needed. James broke the quiet, of course. He's here now, he said tonelessly. He's here now, and Mum won't ever let him go back. I know it. Remus nodded, because there weren't any words. He didn't know if James saw. They were both staring straight up. His mind was racing, and he said the first thing that felt like a coherent thought.
Is that what happens with that curse? I don't know. I've never seen it. No, of course. Mum used to be a healer, if anyone can help him. And Dumbledore's here. Yeah, exactly. If he's... Remus's voice cracked and he stopped talking. I know, mate, James whispered. They did not speak again until the morning.
I mean, that's a good point. If Dumbledore's there, it's gotta be Sirius. I mean, it was the Cruciatus curse, but what'd Sirius say? What did he do?
Right, well, I think we're going to find out once he wakes up.
Is there a canon reason? Like, is there a agreed upon reason of why Sirius was kicked out?
He runs away.
In the fandom? Yeah, but
things got awful at home. It's not...
I didn't know if there was, like, a specified reason for why he ran away, or anything, like, an agreed upon canon ideal.
I think it's just that,
Oh, what was the last part they whispered? Lucas didn't.
Oh, if he's... Remus's voice cracked and he stopped talking. I know, mate, James whispered. They might not speak again. They did not speak again until the morning. So James just said, I know, mate.
Yeah, he just cut him off.
Oh.
No, I was saying that James cut him off.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Method output. Welcome to the channel. And we are glad you are enjoying the videos.
Yes, thank you very much.
We have a few to catch up on.
Chapter's not over yet.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
Okay. Oh, and Angela, the cat's name is Jackson. You may hear me refer to him as J Action sometimes.
I love that she calls him Magnificent Orange. That's great.
He is.
He is the Magnificent Orange. What a handsome boy.
He's just like cuddled up, like, I think he likes that name, Magnificent Orange.
The Magnificent Orange. I like it. Let's finish the chapter.
All right.
Christmas Day, 1975. Remus couldn't believe he'd fallen asleep. He cursed himself for being so thoughtless, so selfish. You've no right to him, he told himself angrily as he sat up, climbing off James's huge, comfortable four-poster bed. You've no right to call yourself his friend at all, if you can't even stay awake when he's... He didn't know how Sirius was. He left James still sleeping and went to the bathroom. It was morning. The curtains had been drawn, presumably by Gully, and watery winter daylight filled the stairwell. The house was very quiet. No one else was awake yet. There was no usual smell of breakfast cooking or tea brewing on the hob. After he'd been to the loo and had a quick wash... Yes, Sirius took the loo. Or Remus took the loo. After he'd been to the loo and had a quick wash, Remus stood awkwardly in the hall. He didn't want to go back into James's room. That seemed a bit weird, especially when he had his own things all laid out in one of the guest rooms. Sirius was in the room at the end of the hall. Remus could smell him. Mrs. Potter was in there too. He didn't know where Mr. Potter was. Master Lupin! A squeaky voice startled him from the stairs. It was Gully, his big brown eyes full of innocent concern. Is you wanting breakfast, Master Lupin? Remus shook his head. No, thank you. 'Tis a terrible thing, terrible bad thing. The wizened little creature shook its head sadly, ears wilting like a sorry puppy. Yes, terrible. Remus sat on the stairs, glad for someone to talk to. I'm telling my mistress and my master. We's got to be careful. We's got to protect our own. Gully is thinking we should go into hiding. Gully knows lots of families going into hiding now. Gully's brow creased, as if he was trying to remember something exactly right. But my mistress is saying to me, Gully, we is responsible. We is a lucky, good family, and we has many good things. Mistress tells me we needs to be looking after everyone we can. She says if we don't, we is having nothing worth protecting at all. Didn't do a very good job of protecting Sirius. Remus scuffed the carpet angrily with his toe. No,
Gully shook his round head again. Always in war, there is people getting hurt. Remus bit his lip. Behind them, a door opened. Gully, the weak voice of Mrs. Potter came. Will you come and sit with Sirius while I... Oh, hello, Remus, dear. She'd been up all night, that was clear, but she still had a smile for him. Is he okay? Remus stood up. No lasting damage, she croaked, her smile waning slightly. Not on the outside, anyway. He's sleeping still, just a mild dose of potion. Would you like to sit with him? I need a little lie down before Monty gets home. Yeah, of course. Remus started forward, eager to help in any way he could. He crossed the landing quickly and slipped into the room. Send Gully to wake me as soon as he opens his eyes, Euphemia said, patting his shoulder gently. Dumbledore will want to speak to him. He wanted to last night, but I wouldn't let him. Poor lamb. He was conscious then, last night? Yes, for a little while. Euphemia sighed deeply, hollow with exhaustion. But he was in no fit state for an interrogation. Remus nodded dumbly. She closed the door behind her. The room was dark, but that was okay. Remus could see in the dark. He often liked it. Excuse me. The figure lying in the bed could not possibly be his friend, Sirius Black, because Sirius Black never slept like that, facing up, hands by his side, covers neatly tucked over his chest. Sirius slept like a dog, all rumpled sheets and limbs akimbo, face down, arms thrown wide. Remus approached with caution. Was this how it was, he wondered, the morning after a full moon? Was this how it felt to see your friend torn apart? It was unbearable. He sat in the seat by the bedside, a squashy purple armchair with a book splayed open in one arm. Unforgivable, caring for the victims of curses and hexes. Remus closed the book, wondering whether Mrs. Potter had needed to consult it many times before. There was a handkerchief underneath it, damp with tears. Remus could smell the salt. It must have been difficult for her, as a healer and a mother. Had she looked at this black-haired boy and seen James? Had she wondered what kind of parent could do such a thing? He sat in the quiet, listening to Sirius breathing. Stupidly, he thought of Grant, who had been no help at all, except that he probably would have hugged Remus, and Remus would have felt a hug was the only thing he wanted in the world just now. The church bells echoed up the hill from the village. It was Christmas Day. James came in and joined him after an hour or so. He brought tea, and Remus accepted it gratefully. James raised his dark eyebrows at Remus, questioning, and Remus shook his head. No. James sat on the arm of the chair, and they did not speak. It was another hour before Sirius so much as moved. A quiet stirring, then a flicker in his features, before his eyes eased open, heavy with sleep. It took him a moment to focus, and the room was very gloomy. When he finally caught the shapes of James and Remus, his brow furrowed, then he cracked a smile. Bloody hell, he said hoarsely. Who died? James laughed. Wanker. Tosspot, Sirius threw back. Arse. Oi! Sirius pushed himself up on his shoulders. Be nice. I'm an invalid, you know. Tell you what, James grinned. You really know how to make an entrance. It's in my noble blood. Sirius smiled, then faltered, his eyes suddenly stricken. They all felt quiet again. Sorry, he muttered, looking down. Tea? Please. Gully! James summoned the house elf, who was only too pleased to serve. So, Sirius asked, the colour slowly returning to his cheeks. You two been keeping a bedside vigil for me? Actually, it's Mum who's been up all night. Oh, yeah. Sirius's face grew distant, closed off. I'll thank her for that, obviously. Say sorry for showing up like that. Don't be stupid, James shook his head. She'd do anything for you. She loves you. Sirius's eyes filled with tears and he looked away. Fortunately, Gully reappeared at that moment with a tea tray laden with cups, saucers, toast, muffins, sausages, eggs, scrambled, fried and boiled, smoked salmon, kippers, and even cereal. None of them ate very much. Remus was hungry, starving actually, but everything tasted like plastic, so in the end he just downed cup after cup of scalding tea. No milk, no sugar. He wasn't angry yet. Anger was his usual response to feeling helpless or sad or in pain, but he felt like it might come later. Just now he wanted to be whatever Sirius needed. "Oh," he said suddenly. "I was supposed to get your mum, James, as soon as Sirius woke up." "Let her sleep," Sirius said, resting on his pillows. "No, she wanted me to, so she could go get Dumbledore." "What for?" James asked, perplexed. "Everything's fine now." "He wanted to ask some questions." "No!" Sirius said. James and Remus both turned to look at Sirius, who'd paled again, his eyes big and frightened. "Please," he said. Not yet. Not yet. Just let me have Christmas, okay? I don't want to talk about it." "Okay, mate. It's all right," James said softly, leaning over to pat Sirius's shoulder. "We won't wake her up. You can pretend to be asleep if you want. Anything you want." "Thanks." Sirius relaxed again. "Sorry." Pfft. James blew his hair up from his forehead. "It's Christmas, isn't it?"
So tell us what happened. Sirius, stop being selfish. We need to know. Yeah, I agree with Lucas. I think Bellatrix did it. It makes sense. Bellatrix is that type of person. This would kind of set the stage.
Maybe it was Bellatrix. Their rivalry.
Yes. And hello, Marcelo. We are good. How are you doing today?
Oh, yes. Hello. That was a downer.
Yeah, it was.
But, I mean, this does canonically happen, that he runs away.
And we found out that the Potter's house elf is not that great of a cook.
But is very wise and insightful.
Yes, very insightful.
Very insightful. I like Gully.
I like Gully, too.
Why are the house elves always great?
I don't know. Reminds me a bit of Dobby.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Dobby would have cared about being a free elf if he had the Potters as his family?
I don't know. Maybe. Dobby really, really wants to be free.
That's true, but
the Malfoys also owned him.
I mean, if he had, if the Potters didn't die and he grew up with the Potters and Harry, I feel like he'd be like, nah, I'm good.
Also, it seems in this little snippet of conversation with Gully, when he says he's talking to his mistress and all that stuff, it seems that the way that the Potters interact with Gully, they very much treat him with respect and want his opinion and treat him like a being,
like an equal.
Yeah, they have full-on conversations with him and really seems to be a good relationship that they have with him.
You're just not this lesser being who I tell what to do.
Right, you're a part of our family.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but think that Gully is going to die at some point.
Yeah, probably.
We're gonna get a Gully murder, or something bad is gonna happen to him. I think. Maybe yes, Gully is a boy.
Yeah, I thought Gully was a girl too. But
fair enough. I was trying to make him not sound like Dobby and not sound like Creature.
Fair enough. I feel like you got like halfway between Dobby and Winky with Gully's voice. That's why it kind of sounds feminine a little bit.
I was convinced Gully was a girl.
I was too, and then it read something where he said,
yep,
I was like, wait, what?
Yep, Gully is a boy.
Yeah. Oh shoot, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, maybe Gully dies when Voldemort kills the rest of Harry's family.
I feel like Gully's gonna die before then.
You think so?
I think so.
Why?
what my gut says. Because it has to canonically make sense.
Yeah.
Right. There's no house elf. There's no house elf in the Potter's house when they're murdered.
How do you know? Maybe it's just not mentioned because house elves are looked as,
Dumbledore would have paid attention. Dumbledore would have said something. He would have said, they mentioned that the Potters had a cat. They didn't find the cat in the house. If there was a house elf there, that would have been mentioned.
That's true.
So I think to keep the canon
is the
consistent,
theory that their cat was Crookshanks still possible?
Yeah.
Or did we prove that wrong? Or did someone prove that wrong?
I don't remember, but I know we talked about it.
At length. It'd be great if Crookshanks was
the Potter's cat. Because it was an orange cat. The magnificent orange.
It was, yeah. Crookshanks is... I mean, there's only one magnificent orange, and he's right here, but still.
Like a Dobby stand-in. Gully's gonna die because of parallels. It's possible. That's what I'm saying. I think Gully's gonna die at some point. Maybe Gully's gonna die trying to save the Marauders or something. Because he can't be in the house owned by James when Voldemort comes to do the thing.
That's true.
So they got to keep the canon. So something's going to happen to Gully.
Maybe Gully just dies peacefully of old age.
That would be nice. But he literally just said something about, innocents always die in war. It sucks. He's an innocent.
Maybe he's not. Maybe he has a dark past that we don't know of. Maybe he's not so innocent.
This is true. I don't know. Creature would know. The other house elves in the area would know.
Mr. Potter had some shady deals, and he had to have some of his competition have accidents.
I don't know.
And
Either way.
Gully knew how. That house elf magic.
That's house elf magic. What a great place to be with his friend, Remus Lupin. No! No! Oh my god, if that's how it happens in this story, that's gonna be devastating.
Yeah.
Dobby is bad enough. I don't need it to happen a second time to a character that's not even canon in the...
Is Bellatrix gonna do it?
Oh my god, is Bellatrix gonna maybe... So then later when she kills Dobby, she's just like, this isn't my first time. She has deja vu. That's just what... I'm sorry, that's just... I really went out there with the house elf thing. I was just reading this story and this chapter and this whole little conversation with Gully and how nice it is and how you kind of see more into the relationship he has with Mr. and Mrs. Potter, and he's talking to Remus, and I'm like, oh my god, Gully's gonna die.
Maybe not.
He's gonna die. I know
Maybe
he is.
Not.
Yeah, Dobby's death is hands down
single-handedly.
Hands down the worst. Absolutely.
In comparison, I really don't care about anyone else's death at all.
Compared to Dobby?
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking. It is just so devastating every time.
2 down, 1 to go. Watch out, creature.
Well, that's true.
Fred was a close second, but Dobby's still just miles ahead.
Dobby is just beyond heartbreaking.
Heart-wrenching.
2 down, 1 to go. Then she's gonna go for creature.
Exactly.
Bellatrix is just out there hunting down house elves. Maybe that's really what happened to Winky. Maybe Bellatrix got her.
Yeah, that's why she wasn't in
the rest of the books. Yeah, Bellatrix got her. Creature was the only one that survived.
Oh, man, that's sad.
This is true, Katie. We do know that this story is not going to end happily. So
it ends in
death.
I want to see.
Well, Harry Potter is all about death, so it's appropriate.
I want to see where this story is going to go once it starts entering into the Harry Potter timeline territory.
Yeah, me too.
That's gonna be difficult.
Are we gonna get book 3 from Lupin's perspective?
I mean, that would be
great. Cool, right? Yeah, I don't know. I am anxious to see what's going to happen with the war and all of that, because we're nearing the end of year 5 here. And then don't Lily and James start going out at the end of year 6 or the beginning of year 7?
Yeah.
And then like 3 years later,
I think it's 7, because isn't it 6 where the whole Snape's worst memory takes place?
No, it's this one.
Oh, okay.
Because they finish their OWLs, and that they're just done taking one of their OWL tests, and then they go out onto the lawn, and then it happens. So
okay, it's because 6 years the NEWTs.
Yeah,
I got that mixed up. I was thinking the other way around.
So that's gonna happen at the end in the summer portion of this. The Snape's worst memory incident is gonna.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, because in the book, Lupin just sits there and lets it happen. Yep. So
what's he thinking as that's going on?
Yes, the Defense Against the Dark Arts written exam. That's right, because Snape writes like a book.
Yeah.
I think the difference with Fred and Dobby is that Fred was in a battle, Dobby was helping his friends. That and Dobby was just innocent. He was just a manifestation of just pure innocence and love. And he gave nothing but love and was just this little embodiment of that. And he just was murdered. Innocent life in war, all that. We
first ones to go.
We talk about that when we read Game of Thrones all the time.
Yeah.
Every time we read an Arya chapter and do a discussion, it's like we have to talk about the innocence being destroyed by war.
It's a very light theme throughout Harry Potter, but Game of Thrones, it's very much
smacks you in the head with it every time we go visit Arya. Every time.
It's the biggest theme for Arya's storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god. Should we find out what happens?
Yeah.
Let's
you
see.
Think that? I was just gonna read method outputs. They should put security in place in the Hogwarts kitchen. But then how will the Hufflepuffs get in there to steal food?
That's true. What if you can't tickle the pear anymore?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the Hufflepuffs would not be cool with that. Nor would Fred and George.
No, definitely not Fred and George. Well, I mean, I guess you could always just ask the house elves, snag me some food out of there. I mean, Harry has an inn. He knows 2 of the house elves that work down at 3.
Yeah, Harry has the hookup.
Except Winky kind of hates him, so.
Winky's drunk all the time. I guess she doesn't really count.
That's true.
She's just drunk all the time.
Don't ask her to bring you any butterbeer. She'll just bring you some empty bottles every time.
What?
They were full when I grabbed them.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Well, let's find out what happened to Sirius, shall we?
Ooh, Dobby promised not to save Harry's life again. He broke that promise. Right. This is why you never break a promise.
That hurt me personally.
It's so dark, but it's so funny. Because, Dobby, if you were just a man of your word, you'd be all right.
But that's what's so tragic about it. He just loves Harry so much. He has to. And I'm sure Aberforth asked him very nicely.
That's true.
Drinking is Winky's self-punishment for not serving Barty Crouch Jr.
Yeah, pretty much.
Winky is definitely torturing herself, for sure.
Poor Winky.
Poor Winky. All right. Content warning.
Here we go again. All right.
Content warning for descriptions of nasty abuse stuff Also a homophobic slur at the end. Might only be a slur in the UK, but still a slur. Okay, content warning out of the way.
Dobby didn't promise? Yeah, Harry asked.
Yeah,
I guess Dobby never did agree to anything, so okay.
Please don't try to save my life again. That's what Harry says.
Yeah, and I don't think Dobby ever responds. So yes, okay, Marcelo, good point. Yeah.
No one was angry that they tried to protect Sirius. Mrs. Potter rose from her own bed when Mr. Potter returned from wherever he'd been, and they both agreed that Dumbledore was sure to arrive of his own accord, eventually, and anything he wanted to ask Sirius could wait until then. They salvaged the rest of the morning as best they could. Mr. Potter cheerfully offered to apparate all of the presents up to Sirius's bedroom, but Sirius wouldn't have it.
"My legs work fine," he insisted. "I want to come down and see the tree."
So they all gathered themselves up and got dressed or changed, then reconvened half an hour later in the living room. Remus couldn't help staring at the patch of carpet where he'd seen Sirius's body fall less than 12 hours previous. The pain was sharp and startling. He had to look at the current, conscious Sirius, bundled up in blankets with yet another mug of tea on the couch opposite him, just to feel normal again. The unwrapping of gifts still felt as joyful and natural as ever. A free-for-all, no order to it. They simply tore at wrapping paper until they were surrounded by it, strips of brightly coloured debris. It didn't matter what anyone got, only the memory of having received something nice on that awful morning. The Potters, of course, had plenty ready for both Sirius and Remus, and they promised Sirius even more yet to come. "We'll get you some nice pictures to brighten up your room," Mrs. Potter said. "Which Quidditch team do you support, sweetheart? Or perhaps one of those rock stars you kids like?" Sirius looked at her as if he'd received the most wonderful gift of his life. Perhaps he had.
"Most of my stuff's at Hogwarts," he said. "It's just clothes at home."
He looked a little bit embarrassed, and Remus knew he was also thinking about the rude posters he'd permanently affixed to his bedroom walls. You could be sure he would not be doing that in his new room at the Potters. "Well, you can borrow some of James's things for a little while. Perhaps we'll go shopping in the new year." They sat down to a quiet Christmas lunch. Evidently, someone had disinvited the guests that had been planned for, which to Remus was a blessing. He was already worn too thin from worry and not enough sleep. He did not need Darius Barebones thrown into the mix. He did think of the Pettigrews, and wondered if Peter was worried or feeling left out. Gully was just about to set up the Christmas pudding when a crack of apparition sounded outside the front gate. Dumbledore. Sirius jumped and looked as if he wanted to get up from the table, but stayed put. Mr. Potter smiled at them all reassuringly and went to the door. Everyone listened intently. "Albus, Merry Christmas!"
"Fleamont, I take it Sirius has had his rest?"
"Yes, we were just about to have—"
"I did request you contact me as soon as he woke up."
"Come in, Dumbledore. Join us for some pudding." Dumbledore walked into the room. He was wearing sombre robes and deep brownish maroon, like dried blood. He looked as though his night had been just as long as theirs. He was followed in by a stocky man who resembled a rather grizzled bulldog. He had a mass of greyish ginger hair and mean dark eyes which darted furtively round the room, as if scouting for trouble. Albus, Alistair, Albus, Alistair." Mrs. Potter got up, waving her wand. 2 more chairs appeared at the dining room table, as well as small plates, forks, napkins, and goblets. "Won't you join us for pudding?"
"Not now, Effie," the stocky man, Alistair, grunted. "On duty."
She gave him a look not dissimilar to the look she'd given James last night. He cleared his throat and sat down quickly. Remus smirked. He had to find out exactly how she did that. Mothers had their own magic, it seemed. Dumbledore took his place with more decorum. His expression, as ever, was still as a millpond and impossible to read. He was looking at Sirius. There it was. Remus felt it settle round him like an old friend. Rage. The desire to lunge across the table and shake Dumbledore senseless was so strong and so tangible, he found himself gripping the seat of his chair. The stranger, Alistair, turned to look at him. Remus felt himself being scanned by those dark, perceptive eyes. "Oh,"
He knew Remus was a werewolf. Remus wasn't sure how he knew that Alistair knew, but he did. There was no question. Remus raised his chin and looked him in the eye. Alistair smiled slightly, as if this had confirmed something he'd hoped for, then turned back to Dumbledore. "Sirius?" the head teacher said quietly. "How are you?" "Fine." "Fine." Sirius nodded, staring at the big dark pudding at the center of the table. Gully snapped his fingers and it caught alight, the blue flame shimmering like strange magical vapor. "I'd like to discuss last night's events with you," Dumbledore pressed. "I know it isn't pleasant, and you may wish to forget, but anything you tell me might be useful. Do you understand?" "Yes, fine," Sirius nodded, expression unchanged. The flame died and Gully clicked his fingers again. The pudding divided neatly into 8 portions. It was rich and moist and cloying, the fruit and brandy stuck in their throats. They ate quietly for a moment before Mr. Potter felt he had to speak. "Not seeing your family today, Moody?" Alistair shook his head. "The job comes first. I'll be here as long as you need me." "We're very grateful," Mrs. Potter said, the kindness returning to her tone. "Alistair is an aura," Mr. Potter explained to the boys. Remus saw the light of recognition go on in James and Sirius's eyes and made a mental note to inquire later. If he had to guess, he assumed it meant some sort of wizard bodyguard. He thought of Charles Bronson in Death Wish and imagined Alistair Moody with a gun. Once pudding was eaten, they all returned to the living room. Sirius sat on the sofa with James and Remus either side. They'd sat in the same formation last Christmas, when Dumbledore had arrived to announce the deaths of the Frasers. Remus had not thought of the Frasers at all since then, not really, only as part of the ever-darkening backdrop of a war he would prefer not to worry about. He had so much else to distract him. One of these distractions was sitting beside him, right now. Their knees knocked together occasionally. Sirius wouldn't sit still. Remus tried not to flinch away, in case it was misread. "I hope this will not take long," Dumbledore smiled, pleasantly, as if there was nothing more than a friendly chat. "Sirius, we just need to know everything you can remember about the events which led you to arriving here at 11:15 last night." "Was that the time?" Sirius blinked. "I thought it was later." Dumbledore folded his hands in his lap and smiled. "In your own time, please." Sirius cleared his throat and glanced at James, who smiled at him in a brotherly way. Sirius looked at Dumbledore again. "I thought it would be okay. I never really got on with my family that well, since I'm in Gryffindor, you know, but I thought it was going to be okay. We have a family dinner every year on Christmas Eve. The whole family." "Who was there?" Moody asked. He was taking notes. A quill hovered just at chest level, scribbling quickly onto a piece of floating parchment. "All the Blacks." Sirius looked up at him. "And the Lestranges, and the Malfoys. Narcissa and her husband, anyway. No Andromeda, obviously. The Goyles arrived later. The Knots, the Crabs. Barty Crouch was visiting. He's friends with my brother." "Crouch?" Moody sounded surprised. Dumbledore smiled again, inclining his head. "That would be Bartemius Jr., of course." "Yeah," Sirius nodded. "Little git." "Quite the gathering, eh, Albus?" Moody muttered. "Quite. Please, Sirius, do go on." "So, yeah, it was all normal, really. Normal for us. Dinner, dancing, snobby stuff. He paused, looking ashamed. "They toasted to Voldemort. I didn't join in, though, Professor, I swear. It was sort of jokey. I don't even know how serious they were. Dad was a bit drunk." Dumbledore's expression did not change. Sirius was looking at his feet now and kept talking faster and faster. "I was supposed to talk to James at 8, so I tried to sort of sneak off. But my cousin, Bellatrix, she caught me and cornered me in the library. She said I was nearly of age. It was time I started taking my role as heir more seriously, leave my friends behind and grow up. I told her to... Well, I wasn't very nice. She called my parents. Reg came in too, and Crouch. I wasn't worried because, well, everyone knows Bella's a bit bonkers, so I thought they'd just tell her to stay out of it. But they didn't. They sided with her. Dad said he wanted me to make him proud for once. I told him I was trying, but... Sirius paused for breath. The silence was agony. Anyway, they wanted me to swear allegiance to Voldemort. I thought they were joking. They were saying all this mad stuff about Muggle-borns and blood traitors, and then Bellatrix showed me her arm. She's got this tattoo. He looked up as if realizing this piece of information was useful. It's the Dark Mark, sir, the skull and snake. She said she's chosen a side and it's time for me to choose mine. I said no. I said it so many times. He closed his eyes, looking down again. And they hurt you for it, did they? Dumbledore prompted. They tried to persuade you? Yes. Bellatrix did this? No. Your mother? Your father? Sirius's breathing was very shallow, but he kept going. He nodded. They took turns. Mrs. Potter stood up suddenly and left the room. Remus didn't blame her. His urge to hit something was reaching critical levels. But you managed to escape, Dumbledore pushed gently. Sirius nodded again. After a while, I must have stopped saying no because, well, it just hurt too much. I couldn't say anything. They must have needed me to agree because they left me there. They locked me in the library. There's a fireplace there and flue powder. I don't know, maybe they wanted me to go. He sounded very tired now, but the story was told, and there was an air of relief. Thank you, Sirius, Dumbledore said very softly. This has been a great help. I won't disturb your Christmas any further. He stood smoothly and glanced at Mr. Potter. Your offer to house Sirius until he comes of age still stands, I assume? As much as it did when he was 12, Mr. Potter said, straightening his back. He was a head shorter than Dumbledore, but at that moment, Fleemont Potter was the tallest man in the room. Excellent, Dumbledore nodded. I shall see you boys in January, then. Wait, Sirius jumped up. Professor, what about my brother? Do you believe Regulus is in danger? I don't think they'll hurt him. He's good at doing as he's told, but he only wants to please our parents. But they'll make him join Voldemort. He'll get marked. He's 16 next year and... Does Regulus want to? No, not like I did. Then we cannot force him. He is in no immediate danger. I'm sorry, Sirius. Sirius hung his head, sat back down. Dumbledore left quietly, shaking Mr. Potter's hand. Moody left too, returning to his station outside the Potters' front gate. Remus watched him through the window. What a very strange man. Mr. Potter, Sirius said, unnaturally polite. Please may I borrow some parchment? I'd like to write to Andromeda. Of course, my boy. Mr. Potter nodded. He led Sirius and James into his study. Remus stayed put, feeling he wasn't really needed just now. The Potters were here to support Sirius. They could do whatever was necessary. He, Remus, was only really useful when Sirius needed some sense slapped into him, verbal, of course, or when a prank needed ironing out. Then there would be plenty of time for those things once this particular storm had passed. Again, Remus wished he could speak to Grant. There was definitely a phone box in town. If he wanted to, Remus could call St. Edmund's and Matron would probably just hand the phone over. She wasn't a jailer. But Moody was, and Remus didn't much like the idea of explaining why he fancied a trip into the village on Christmas Day. He closed his eyes and tried to imagine what Grant might say. Bloody hell, probably. They went to bed early that night. There was nothing else to do. James didn't even suggest flying practice. They played a few half-hearted games of chess, but everyone kept yawning so much that in the end it was ridiculous to try and stay up. They piled into James's bed, even Remus. He tried to maneuver it so that James ended up in the middle, but Sirius sprawled over them and plonked himself down in between his two friends. Budge up, Moony, he grinned with a sharp elbow in the ribs. Remus kept as close to the edge as possible. Touching Sirius underneath the covers, even with his toe, was utterly unthinkable. This is weird, he thought. Mates don't share a bed, even best mates. This is so weird. He tried to sleep. James began to snore, and Sirius's breath leveled out. Remus relaxed. He definitely could imagine what Grant would say to this. I knew you boarding school lads was all poofs. Remus couldn't help chuckling slightly under his breath. Sirius rolled over to face him, eyes open, wide awake. What are you giggling at, Moony? Nothing, Remus whispered back, embarrassed. Just not used to sharing a bed. Yeah, James's snoring is pretty bad. And it's weird, right? Remus wanted to say. Don't you think we're weird? Was all he said. Was all he said. I can't sleep, Sirius sighed. I could get James's mum. She might have some more potion. Don't want any more potion. Sirius sounded overtired, tired and sulky like a child. Remus was glad. That made him easier to deal with. Well, just shut your eyes then, he instructed. I keep thinking about it. Oh, sorry. No, not like that. I just mean, it's weird, but while they were doing it, before I sort of stopped talking, I was thinking about you. Me? Yeah, I was thinking, at least now I know how Moony feels. When we were researching all that stuff to help you on the full moon, there was a description in one of the records, written by a witch who had lycanthropy. She said the pain of transformation was similar to the Cruciatus curse. No, I never heard that. I don't think it can be. I think Cruciatus must be much worse. Maybe, Sirius agreed. But it helped a bit. I thought, if Moony can do it, so can I. Remus didn't have a proper response. Go to sleep, Sirius. All right. Good night. Night. He waited for Sirius to fall asleep, properly this time, then carefully got up and went back to his own bed.
What a heavy chapter.
Jeez, yeah.
So it wasn't just Bellatrix, it was everyone.
Yeah.
The Black family got into it.
Except Reg.
Merry Christmas.
I don't think Reg did.
I don't know. Do you think Reg would if his family told him to, though?
I don't know. I think it'd be like a Draco Malfoy situation where he would just not be able to. Like, when Draco's like, yeah, that's not Harry. I can't.
So I don't think he could, but...
They would try to get him to do it. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Just so sad.
Wow.
But very beautiful in the way that Sirius has such a support system.
Yep, Katie's like, you have to mean it. Yep, you do. Wow. Just what a heavy... Whoa. Whoa.
He was thinking about Lupin.
He was thinking about Lupin.
How adorable.
Yeah. Remus freaking out. This is weird. Why are we all sleeping in the same bed? This is weird. He just can't.
Right, guys? It's totally weird. I don't like this at all. This is weird.
I also like the little line where Remus thinks mothers must have their own kind of magic.
Right? That was perfect.
That was so good.
Fuzz! What's up, buddy?
Fuzz? Like the Fuzz?
That's Fuzz, yeah.
Hi, Fuzz! I loved that. The a mother's love thing there. Mrs. Potter definitely the Weasley stand-in. God, she's gonna die too in this story.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
How do they die?
They got dragon pox. Like, they literally got sick.
Kind of ironic that she's a healer. She dies of dragon pox.
Well.
No cure for dragon pox, I'm assuming?
Well, I think it's because they're old.
Oh, okay.
Because they have James late in life.
Yeah.
And they're older. And I think they just got sick.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Katie. I knew Katie would like that. The mothers got their own kind of magic.
Out of all the lines in this book, that one was just like chef's kiss. perfect.
The author really understands the themes of Harry Potter and is very much bringing them out.
Yeah.
Also, I love that Moody doesn't have his eye yet.
Oh, yeah.
And that he's like, Finch! Finch! That was great.
I had to stop myself from laughing when he said that. Does he know? Did he predict it?
Just wait, Moody. Couple years from now, that guy's gonna have you locked away in a trunk for like 9 months.
Doing who knows what.
The connections are just great. God, what a depressing chapter, though.
It really was.
Jeez.
And yeah, Dan's pretty much on. It's a horror book because everyone dies, basically.
Yeah, I think how many characters... There are only a handful of characters.
Everyone that we've met so far dies.
Either in this story or in the actual series. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any...
Well, this story overlaps the actual series.
Right. No, I mean, like, everyone in the story either dies, like, before Voldemort tries to kill Harry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or after. At the
yeah,
start of the novels. That's what I meant. Yeah, I didn't say that very well.
No, I got what you mean now. Yeah.
The only characters in the story that live that we've seen are Flitwick, McGonagall, Hagrid.
Yep.
Like... Marlene, the girl Marlene in the story.
Yeah. We don't know what happens to her, do we?
No, she is mentioned in book 6 or 7. She's murdered by Voldemort. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The McKinnons were killed. They say something like the McKinnons were killed.
Maybe.
And then they say Marlene was such a good witch.
Maybe that's how Sirius ends up with Lupin.
No, that's Mary. He's with Mary.
Oh, yeah, Mary. Oh, shoot. Never mind.
Slughorn makes it. The Malfoys make it. That's true.
That's true. I forgot. Yeah, they haven't really been mentioned that much.
Andromeda.
That's why I wasn't thinking about it.
Andromeda doesn't die.
Yeah, but she's not even in the...
She's in the books for 5 minutes.
She is?
Yeah. She's in book 7. Harry crash lands at the Tonks' house. And Andromeda shows up.
That's
and
right.
He thinks it's Bellatrix at first and he freaks out.
I always forget that the Tonkses are part of that family.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Ted Tonks. Yeah. She raises Teddy.
That's right. So yeah, okay, I forgot about that part. So we do see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I forgot what I was gonna say. All hail Lord Voldemort. There you go. We got a Slytherin up in here.
Yay! A Slytherin! Finally! Another one. Well, no, I know we have other Slytherins somewhere.
Yeah.
There are dozens of us.
Literally dozens. Oh yeah, that's my wife you're talking to. Yeah, in this story we're gonna actually see Voldemort succeed at something.
Yeah, we're gonna see him in his prime. I want a good, solid, awesome Voldemort monologue in this story.
Just one.
I need a good... This is not a Harry Potter story without at least one Voldemort monologue. If there's not one in here... Can you even call yourself a Harry Potter story?
But would you dare write a Voldemort monologue when you know what you have to live up to?
You gotta.
I know, but...
You gotta. She writes everyone else so well. Come on, you gotta give us a Voldemort.
I mean,
speech.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big ask.
It is a big ask.
Gave us Ted and Andromeda Tonks.
Yeah, we didn't get them. They crash at the Weasley's house.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
The movie. I mean, I get why they changed it, but
it didn't have the budget to pay the actors.
It's like a 2-minute scene.
I know, but it's those little things that like bring the story together. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I get it. But I'm just saying it's one of those things that I understand why they cut it.
Yeah.
Versus other things that I don't understand why they cut it, like the Gaunt memory.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. That would have been great.
Other important plot points that you needed to have in the story to make the story work.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. Voldemort and Dumbledore are your favorite characters? That makes sense.
Because great.
When you learn about like what Dumbledore went through, he was like very close from being Voldemort. Really,
he could have.
Like he could have. If he just had a little less sympathy or empathy for things.
I don't think Dumbledore would have ever become Voldemort. Voldemort's
psychopathy he went through
is
a very similar set of events. Not well, I guess not really, but
well, he didn't. It's Harry and Voldemort who share more. Similar events.
I mean, Dumbledore started out like death to the humans and the wizard should rule.
Well, he did adopt that. After Hogwarts when he was hanging out with Grindelwald, but like Voldemort had that superiority
from
thing
like birth.
From when he was little,
in the orphanage,
he's like, I knew I was special. I knew that I was extraordinary, like all that. I think they should have kept it because Voldemort would not want to attack the burrow, so it would be given too much protection. Dumbledore is like Snape. Both turn good directly after causing a loved one to die. Dumbledore with Ariana and Snape with Lily. Dumbledore is for the greater good. Voldemort is for the greater evil. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dumbledore and Snape are very much alike. They both embody the idea of the unforgivable sin being the one you cannot forgive yourself for. Dumbledore cannot forgive himself for the events that led up to Ariana's death, while Snape cannot forgive himself for the role he played in Lily's death. And they carry that weight around with them for their entire lives.
Well, I always thought that's why Dumbledore trusted Snape so deeply, was because Snape was him.
They recognized that in each other.
Yeah.
And there, I think, is a great amount of self-flagellation in what Snape does.
And yeah.
And I think Dumbledore, to a certain extent, has the same issue, but I don't think he's as self-flagellating as Snape. Snape really tortures himself over everything.
Well, I think it's the difference in how it happened. It happened with Dumbledore because of his inactivity.
Dumbledore's was much more of just like an accident.
Yeah.
Like a pure accident that just...
Where Snape was based on his actions.
Like Snape Snape intentionally said to Voldemort, this is the prophecy. He directly did something, and Dumbledore's was more of just a pure accidental thing that happened. But I think they both just can't forgive themselves for it. But they're very different things.
Similar
I think they see that in each other.
They're like opposite in the way that those things came about.
And the love was different. Like, Snape was in love with Lily, and Dumbledore, like, that was his family, was his little sister.
Different types of love.
Yeah, it's...
And thank you, Dalton. That's awesome.
Thank you for coming on to tell us how much you've enjoyed what we do. It makes it worthwhile. For sure. I have a question. How did Hagrid find Harry even though he wasn't a secret keeper and Dumbledore shouldn't be able to tell him where the house was due to the Fidelius charm and Peter being alive? Peter was secret keeper, so nobody could reveal the location. Hagrid shouldn't have been able to find Harry, right?
Oh, that's Yeah.
I think Katie answered it.
Oh.
Lily and James are dead. The spell is broken.
Yeah, but I thought the secret keeper would have to die for the spell to be broken.
No,
right?
I don't think. Well, what's being?
Well, I guess yeah.
The charm broke.
Did the charm put on their house or them? I guess is the question, because like Grimmauld Place,
the Fidelius charm is like one of these things that like is so complicated that you could. It's like the. It's one of those unpacking. It's a complicated thing you could theorize about quite a lot.
Because then, if you do it on the people, okay, but if I don't know how that would work.
Well, I think Katie makes the point that with the Potters dead, there's no more secret.
Right, but like
there's no secret to be kept anymore, so the charm
that's like, what I'm saying.
The charm, the secret keeper part is like on the person.
Okay.
Keeping the secret, and then the charm itself is enacted on them in the space. But Peter told, and then Voldemort violated and murdered, and I think that broke the spell.
Okay. So I guess for
Voldemort could put his face up to the window and not see them.
Okay. That's what I want to know. If it was like Grimmauld Place, where like the house was just not there to anyone walking by.
Well, that was a different kind of magic, though.
That was
Grimmauld Place being hidden between, what is it, 14 and 15?
Yeah, or no, not 14 and 15. 14 and 16.
Thank you.
Because it was 15. Wait, no, is it 14 Grimmauld? I don't remember right now.
That Grimmauld Place being hidden like that, that's not a Fidelius charm. That's like a night bus magic thing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Fidelius because he has to give Harry the note from Dumbledore because Dumbledore was the secret keeper.
think that there's more to it than that.
Okay.
With Grimmauld Place specifically, I think there's more magic going on.
Number 12 Grimmauld Place. Thank you. Yes.
But Voldemort was told by Peter, the Fidelius charm is for the location, not the people inside, so why would Lily and James change anything?
That's what I wanted to know to clarify it, whether it was placed on the individual, Lily and James, or on their location. It would make more sense for it to be put on Lily and James because as soon as they step out of the house, they're no longer protected, you know? But I don't know.
That's why the Fidelius charm is complicated. But case in point, Voldemort could go to the location and not see them in the house.
But would he see the house, is what I'm saying.
The house was also destroyed, so if the spell was on the house, then it's not a proper location anymore.
Touche.
So, I don't think it's holes. I think it's...
I don't know. This is one I'd like to dive into. I think we could definitely do some more research.
Gotta do it.
Off the top of my head, honestly, it does kind of seem like holes, like it could go either way. But I think I need to know more about the Fidelius charm and how it was placed on them to protect them. Because there definitely could be some holes here. Maybe not. Or maybe Rowling just said it very generally so she can cover up those holes if need be by saying, well, this never said whether it was on them or the house, so...
I agree. I don't think it's plot holes. I think it's complicated. And I think to explain it, we'd have to go back into the books and read the discussions of the Fidelius charm and the incidences and when the Fidelius charm is active at Grimmauld Place.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grimmauld Place does have the Fidelius charm on it. That's right, because he gets this sheet of paper. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is, you know, you've got other magic factors in there. You know, is it the Fidelius charm that makes it invisible? Or is it the Fidelius charm and maybe they've made the building unplottable? Because you can do that, you know. Because when Harry walks up to the house, he doesn't see the house right away. His house in Deathly Hallows. He doesn't see it right away. And no, because they have to like do magic or whatever, and then he reads the sign, and then they see the ruins of the house, and they don't see it right away.
Oh yeah.
So I think when you compare Grimmauld Place to the Potter's house, it's you have to consider other factors, like is Grimmauld Place unplottable?
I mean, probably. You would think it was the Order of the Phoenix hideout. Right. They would have put every spell they could think of to protect that. So I'm sure it was unplottable.
Right.
Sure, everything imaginable. Probably had all the defenses that even Hogwarts had.
That's what I mean. So, the cursed child plot holes are everywhere. That's part of the problem with the cursed child. There are plot holes all over the place. Yeah, when Harry and Hermione visit the house, they say Fidelius was broken. I think it was broken by the destruction of the house and the murder of the Potters. I'm going to side with Katie on this. That's how the charm was broken.
Okay.
Cursed child is a plot crater.
This is going super deep to the point where like I'm leaving it really up to you guys because I mean I can argue it, but I don't know. I'm not that ingrained in Harry Potter yet that I would know all that.
Fair enough.
I've only gone through the books once. Okay,
it's fair enough. Both unplottable and hidden behind a Fidelius charm. It's unplottable and invisible. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the house physically not being visible is because of the Fidelius charm. It's because you've got all other kinds of stuff going on. Don't tell me that the Black family did not have their home secured by all kinds of stuff before it became the Order of the Phoenix headquarters. Especially during the First War. Think about the First War.
Yeah.
If Regulus is involved in Sirius's family is involved in the war, maybe that was a meeting place. So maybe it had a Fidelius charm on it back in the 70s. You know?
Yeah, maybe.
So there's all, secured against muggles, but not wizards. Magic inception.
That's right.
Yeah.
Gotta go deeper.
Yep. Magic's complicated.
Do we have this discussion? Could you uncover someone's secret? No, we already went through this. They have to willingly tell you. You can't take it from them. I forgot we did have this discussion because we had it with couldn't Voldemort just go to Wormtail and read his mind?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah,
we did have that conversation. Yeah. The secret keeper.
I'll stop myself there before we become redundant.
Yeah, Grimmauld Place is in a Muggle neighborhood. It's in the middle of London. Of course, you're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah. I mean, that's great location by them, though. Like, here's the Blacks. They hate anyone who is not a pureblood. Let's make our house in the middle of London around a bunch of Muggles.
Right?
Who's gonna think?
How did the Blacks manage with that many Muggle neighbors? Why would they not be in an all-wizard town?
Well, I think that's it, because it's the last place you would expect them to be.
Yeah, but why would they not be, like, in the countryside, like the Malfoys?
Okay, that's a good question.
I think, here's my theory, I think the House of Black is so old.
Oh, you think they were in the countryside?
And I think they were in London. I think they were in London back in, like, the Dark Ages, right? Like, way, way long time ago. And the Muggles just came up around them.
That's were there before there was a London.
They go back a long time, I'm just saying. Hagrid getting the location of the Potter's house is kind of explained on Pottermore.
It is, okay.
If the secret keeper dies, anyone to whom he or she has confided the information will become a secret keeper. This could involve many people, of whom might be more willing to share the secret. Since the info can't be forced out of you, why did Sirius say Voldemort would go after him first to get the information, even though this wouldn't matter to him because the info can't be forced out of him?
Maybe Sirius didn't know that it couldn't be forced out of him?
I think Voldemort doesn't care about this kind of magic, so he would think that he is so powerful that he could torture that person into telling the secret.
Yeah.
I think he would think, I am Voldemort. I can outdo the Fidelius charm, and I'm just going to torture you. I'm not going to read your mind and forcibly pull it out of you. I'm going to torture you until you tell me what it is. Because that could work.
Could, the truth serum work? If you gave that to them and then asked where the Potters are living?
That's a good question.
Veritaserum?
That's a good question.
Because they're technically willingly telling you.
I don't know if you're willing. I would say that's a gray area, being given Veritaserum. You're under the influence of something. You have no filter. You're not willingly.
That's true, but it's a potion, not magic. It's like...
Well, it is magic, but one's a charm, one's a potion. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would agree. I don't know as it would work, because when you're not willingly telling people things, you're under the influence, as it were. But almost like a weird version of it's the potion version of like the Imperious Curse, specifically targeted at you are going to tell the truth. When you're under the Imperious Curse, you're not doing anything willingly. Someone is telling you what to do and making you do things. Veritaserum is literally forcing information out of you. You're not willingly saying anything.
But it makes you tell the truth, but...
I think the charm would block it.
Maybe. Voldemort has ways of making you talk, that's right.
3 drops and you know who would share his deepest secrets.
That would be interesting to see.
I think that's his counter argument. Right. 3 drops and you know who would share his deepest secrets, but those are just his secrets. The secret of the Secret Keeper is a secret that is magically implanted that can potentially combat other kinds of magic. Like I think
there's some deep Harry Potter.
Because it's not just like you gave Voldemort Veritaserum and then he's like, one time I saw Bellatrix naked and it hurt me.
I hated it.
You know, I think because it is a magic element that Veritaserum would not penetrate that.
Okay. I feel like
I don't know for sure, but that's what my gut tells me. It's like magic against magic neutralizing itself. I don't think you... Because otherwise, be giving people Veritaserum left, right, and center if it worked.
Well, yeah, but it's very difficult to make.
You can't tell me Slughorn couldn't just...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Slughorn could.
My gut says I don't.
That's the master.
My gut says I don't think it would work.
Okay, fair enough.
Fidelius Charm is extremely difficult to perform. It's extremely powerful. I don't see...
Wonder Woman's Truth Whip. They are both owned by Warner Brothers, DC, and Harry Potter, so it is possible that Harry could come across the Justice League.
That took a strange turn in another direction.
Well, I just thought, like, that would be kind of a cool crossover.
Aquaman would have a great time at the lake.
Oh, yeah, he would. Maybe that's it. Maybe Aquaman is actually one of the merpeople.
It takes a few months to make Veritaserum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Snape talks about it, I think.
Yeah, he does. I just remember how hard it is, and like Snape's one of only a few people who has like the skill to actually make it. And that's why they have to keep going to him about it.
Yeah, and he's that's why he's really angry when people keep raiding his personal supply of ingredients. I don't blame him.
But then he gets to have the fun of making more of it.
Right. But then he also has to resupply his cupboards, Barty Crouch Jr.
Okay, fair enough.
No, Dumbledore does the Fidelius charm on the Potter's house.
Yeah.
Because Sirius tells Dumbledore to make Peter the secret keeper and not him. So it's Dumbledore that does the Fidelius charm.
Yeah, so Sirius was the original.
He was going to be the secret keeper. James chose him to be the secret keeper.
But he said no.
Sirius said no, it should be Peter because they'll never suspect him.
That's why Sirius beat himself up about it. Because he was the one that said to give Peter the responsibility.
There we go. There's that theme of the only unforgivable sin is the one you can't forgive yourself for.
Yeah.
I don't know if Sirius is able to forgive himself for that.
No, I don't think so. I think Sirius is one of the few characters who actually comes to terms with it. In the end, I think he still kind of blames himself, but he kind of puts it past him and says that he's going to redeem himself by, doing what he can to help Harry.
Of course,
and he's his godfather.
He's his godfather. Yeah, yeah.
And I think he's one of the few people who almost come back from it. Maybe even fully come back from it,
If he'd had a chance to. Well, Sirius also has a very, very big case of PTSD and arrested development that he needed to overcome.
That's
from being
too.
in Azkaban.
Yeah.
He's how old when he gets out, but he's still really 21, because he hasn't had a chance to emotionally grow and develop. Which is why he's so rash and everything else. Alongside guilt and regret. And sadness and grief and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So much.
If Dumbledore did it, how would he not know Peter was not the secret keeper? No, Peter has the ability to give the secret away or not.
Right.
After Dumbledore performs the spell, he's just not involved, basically.
Right. So.
Right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, because Peter could have told Sirius the secret. And then Sirius could have told Voldemort,
Yeah.
Dumbledore wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So when the events occur, it very much looks like,
Because when he does it, he basically puts the charm on, and then James would have to go and tell Peter the secret, right? So that even Dumbledore wouldn't know? Or would Dumbledore know because he put the spell on?
Dumbledore knows because he visits them.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because he visits them, and when Harry reads the letter in book 7, Lily's like, Dumbledore visited today, blah, blah, blah. So Dumbledore...
That's right. I forgot about that.
So just because Peter is the secret keeper doesn't mean that the secret hasn't been told to people. Because Lupin comes to visit them, Dumbledore comes to visit them, so,
Yeah. And I think, if Dumbledore cast it, how did he not know Sirius wasn't secret keeper and it was Peter who sold the Potters out?
He knew Sirius wasn't the secret keeper, but that doesn't mean that other people didn't have the secret.
Yeah.
Dumbledore knew Sirius had the secret because Sirius was visiting the Potters. So
I guess I'm getting confused on how this works. So after you tell this secret to someone, they can tell the secret to someone.
Right.
And then they know.
That's the whole point of being...
So there's multiple secret keepers.
No.
Really. So Dumbledore could have told Voldemort. Sirius could have told Voldemort. And it all would have been...
Right. But everyone thought Sirius was the secret keeper.
Yeah. But no.
The text says Dumbledore was the one to suggest the Fidelius charm to be used on the Potter's house. Right. That's how Hagrid. I just checked. There's
After you tell the secret, the others can't tell. Okay, yeah, because I think that's how it has to be, because otherwise that's just confusing. Like, it goes to a really complicated area where things start to just not make sense anymore. So yeah, he must have. Maybe that's a plot hole.
I don't think so. No, I'm think maybe.
Or did Dumbledore know, but because Peter was gone, he couldn't? Well,
I'm trying to backtrack on what I was saying and trying to think it through, because this is the thing. This charm is complicated. It's not a plot hole. Yeah, Harry had to read the note. Right. Right.
So yeah, Dumbledore should have known. If he did the spell.
Dobby cast the Fidelius charm to protect his family, Harry Potter. I told you 15 minutes ago. Huh? It all works out.
Oh,
it does all work out. Yeah. I think we're just talking around in circles, but let's
maybe. Yeah, scroll back up.
Because I think the more I'm talking, the less I'm making sense. Hang on.
We're making our own holes.
The Fidelius would have stopped everyone else from telling except Peter. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yep. Sirius knew as well without being the keeper.
Okay, so it would have stopped everyone else from telling except Peter. So I think what Dennis is saying is, how did Dumbledore not realize that it was Peter who told?
Because I think Sirius already knew, because he was going to be the secret keeper. I think Sirius knew where they were going to be because he was already going to be the secret keeper. So he knew where they were. But at the last minute, he changed his mind.
Right, but what he's saying is Dumbledore did the spell.
Right.
So why wouldn't he have known that he changed his mind at the end? And that it was Peter who was the secret keeper.
He knew Peter was the secret keeper, but because Sirius already knew the location, Sirius could still tell Voldemort where they were. Because he knew the location. He just didn't end up being the secret keeper.
No, but it wouldn't have worked, because the secret keeper has to tell them. Because someone said up here, Marcelo said Harry had to read the note from Dumbledore.
Right.
If Moody had told him, it wouldn't have worked.
Dumbledore didn't know that Peter became the secret keeper. Maybe the charm maybe Dumbledore casts the spell and the charm enacts in James telling Peter the location. And that's how he becomes the secret keeper. Like, that's maybe how the charm manifests.
I think that's the way we have to go. Otherwise, there definitely is a plot hole there. So we're going to say that's how the charm works.
That's got to be the way that the charm works. That once the spell is whatever the physical mechanism of doing the spell is, and then, James names you secret keeper or whatever, tells you the location, and then boom, you're the secret keeper. Like, maybe Dumbledore wasn't present for that, and maybe Dumbledore assumed it was going to be Sirius and never knew that they switched at the last minute.
Yeah.
Or maybe Dumbledore didn't cast the spell. Maybe James did. Or maybe Flitwick did. Yeah, there we go. I was waiting for Katie to jump in. I knew she was going to back me on this. Like, there's no plot hole.
Okay.
Lily and James can change who the secret keeper is. They don't need Dumbledore to change the person.
Okay. All right. Now it makes sense.
Problem solved. No plot hole. God. And yeah, they could have done it themselves. That's true. I mean, Dumbledore suggested it. We don't necessarily know that Dumbledore actually did it.
I just assumed it was a very complicated spell, and
Dumbledore would have done it.
Yeah, or, only a handful of wizards are capable of doing such a powerful spell.
Sure,
maybe it's
Flitwick could
not
do
as complicated as I'm thinking.
I think a lot of people are overthinking it, though, but we don't know for a fact Dumbledore did or did not cast the spell, but I think we can say for a fact that it's very possible that Dumbledore did not know that Peter was the secret keeper.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough information to say one way or another.
Either way, it's not a plot hole, because you can justify that Dumbledore possibly could not have known.
We either go with the possibility that Dumbledore didn't know and that they just changed the secret keeper and go about our day, or just say it's a gray area and that we can't answer it.
I'm answering it, and I'm saying Dumbledore didn't know.
Okay.
Because they changed to, Katie's right, they changed to Peter at the last second. Nobody knew. Not even Lupin knew.
Yeah.
So, I think it's pretty solid that even if Dumbledore did cast the spell or was involved, doesn't mean he would know that they switched.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. That was a good discussion, though.
It was. That was very lively. That
was really deep.
And we didn't have time to read another chapter anyway. So this was very this is the second time we've gone down the rabbit hole with the Fidelius charm. So I think we went down this rabbit hole when we read Order of the Phoenix.
The Fidelius charm is a complicated thing.
It is a very complicated thing. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, Marcelo. Like he couldn't have known otherwise. Like why think Sirius is a traitor?
Right. Yeah, he would have tried to get Sirius off if he really knew that Sirius didn't do it. Changing the subject a little. When I listened to your reading, I noticed when Snape noticed that Harry wasn't as arrogant as James during the occlumency lesson. That is the point, I think. Snape noticed that Harry was more like Lily than James and started to really care about Harry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think as the book goes on, it starts out, he looks like James and he treats him as James. And slowly, as the years go on, I think he sees more and more of Lily and Harry.
I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea. That you start to see a shift.
Yeah.
Because then by the time you get to 6 and 7 and you see the memory, and James is like, Snape is like, you've raised him like a sheep to slaughter, and Dumbledore is like, don't tell me you've come to care for the boy.
Yeah.
And
that's why, he slowly starts to see the other half of Harry.
And I think he wants to hate him, and part of him really does. I think his feelings for Harry are very complicated. He definitely hates him. But at the same time, he's also Lily's son, and there is...
I think at first he doesn't really come to that conclusion. He's just like, you're James Potter's son, and that's it.
Yeah.
Slowly he comes to realize this is Lily's son.
Yeah, it's a shift.
And by the end, he sees Harry as Lily's son, not James's son.
Yeah. I would agree. I think Marcelo makes a very good point there. Yeah. I like that.
Another very good comment. Thank you, Marcelo.
Go back to the occlumency lessons and read the scene where Snape sees Harry being bullied and he looks at him curiously. That's true. He sees like Harry being bullied by Dudley and stuff, and he does not shit on him and pick on him for that. Like, he doesn't berate Harry about it. He maybe even sees some of himself in that moment.
Yeah, I think so.
At least has a little more understanding, for sure.
Yeah.
Then Harry ruins it.
Yeah, he does.
By creeping where he shouldn't have been creeping.
Yep, he's like, maybe he is more like Lily. And then he goes and pulls a total James move.
Yep.
And ruins it.
Who did the dog belong to? What?
What? Which dog?
What are we talking about?
Sirius? I mean, go by all the young dudes. He's Lupin's. Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez. Very interesting. See how when you listen or you reread, you pick up on new things.
Oh, 100%.
Very cool. I like the insight, Marcelo.
I know. I didn't get it, but yeah.
That was
I really like that insight because I think it brings new light to Snape as a character too.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Snape sees Aunt Marge's dog chasing him up the tree. Ripper, probably.
Yep.
Good old Ripper. I forgot about that. See, Snape and Harry could have had a bonding moment over bullying.
Yep.
And then Harry ruined it.
Harry. Why you do it?
Oh, why you do it? Curiosity killed the Potter.
Well, killed his chances for Snape ever liking him.
Yep. They might have bonded. You never know.
That would have been weird.
What could have been?
Been too weird.
Yeah, okay, that would have been a little weird.
Snape taking Harry out fishing or something. Uncle Severus.
Fishing, specifically?
I don't know. Uncle Sev. Going out and feeding the giant squid.
Potter, do you have the toast? I'm buttering it now, Uncle Sev.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, they would have never liked each other. Nah, I don't think so. Never. Nah. The hate and the initial first impression was not good.
Yeah. Oh, so this doesn't really answer your question there, but I just thought it'd be interesting to go back through here. So, Harry Potter, the books are a ring.
Oh, yeah.
It's the ring theory. And we're definitely seeing some parallels with this fan fiction and Harry Potter. It'd be interesting to see if this is going to be a ring and if, it follows the same structure.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Did this author think out this fanfic that deeply? I mean, we know it's well written, but is it that well written?
Well, this author is not as OCD as Rowling, so I doubt it. But I think the author is more concerned with paralleling the series than making its own ring composition story. Yeah. I think she's more concerned with echoing the journey of Harry that he undergoes.
That's what I was getting, but I just thought about it like
no,
or does it actually parallel?
Well, yeah. It'd be interesting. If she's paralleling the books, then maybe she is ring theorying a little bit because the books in themselves are rings. So if she's writing to parallel the books, she probably is writing rings. And people write rings subconsciously when they write stories.
That's true too.
It's like a subconscious human thing.
And so one last little discussion before we have to go. Dennis says, the time concept of everything being a loop. Well, Hermione mentions terrible things happening to those who meddle with time, right? So does that mean the loop is broken for them? Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to say this because the loop would mean whatever happens will always happen regardless of what is done. The time traveling and the time...
Oh my God.
I have the biggest problem with in Harry Potter.
It's the time travel piece?
Yeah.
Well, and Rowling said that as soon as she had introduced it, she knew that she had to destroy it because you had to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Because if we go to science and
we gotta talk about time travel.
The science of time travel.
We've already done this when we read these books, but okay.
If you've seen Loki, basically time travel.
Or if you've seen Loki.
Well, because Loki actually kind of
I know the variant so timelines.
Say like with Buckbeak, and when they go back in time to save Buckbeak and Sirius and everything, if they went back in time, they would have created a new branch of time, and they basically would have been a new timeline. The previous timeline, Sirius would have died, Buckbeak would have died, yada yada. But they would have made a new timeline where that doesn't happen. But with Rowling, she just has one single timeline, and they change that timeline.
Katie says, I think the time travel concept in Harry Potter is really simple. You can't change it. You can't go back and change anything.
Yeah, see,
that is how it works.
But see, that's where it gets to be like paradoxical, because then, you know, is the time travel always happens, or did that happen because of the time travel? And it's very complicated.
I think it's very easy to overthink how it works in Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's pretty simple. But I think because you could overthink it, Hi, double buns. Double buns. I think if you start to overthink it, then you'll work yourself into confusing yourself and making it harder than it needs to be.
Time is a very difficult thing to kind of break down and explain, which I think Rowling understood, and that's
what happens
destroys the time turner.
Right. Because the way that time travel works in her story is very simple, because it's what happens always happened. And that's how it is.
Yeah.
The events that they experience prior to the time travel are happening while they're going through whatever events, because they've already traveled back in time, and it all just always happens.
I'm just saying, in like a real concept of time, that wouldn't have happened. They would have went to a different timeline.
Right. But this is our universe, and we can make it work however we want to make it work.
Unless it's infinite number of timelines where it just keeps happening, where they go back in time.
Lucas, we don't have time for another chapter. Starts discussion about time travel. Yep.
Oh, that's great.
Dumbledore planned to have Hermione go back and save Buckbeak, and then Sirius was a bonus. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Well, they couldn't have saved Sirius without Buckbeak, so...
Oh my goodness.
Buckbeak was a necessity.
This right now...
I just inhaled some hair.
She's just doing its dimple bands. There is an example in the wizarding world where the loop is broken. A witch goes back in time nearly 1,000 years, then comes back, and it turns out some families no longer exist. That means two different results, even though nothing is supposed to change according to the loop concept. This would mean messing up with timeline, as Hermione said, might destroy the loop. So loop would only be bounding to those whose time travel according to the rules. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why Hermione says it's dangerous to mess with time, because I think if you do it incorrectly, you get that branching timeline crap. You change things, and it messes things up in a way that we don't see because they don't mess it up, right? Mm. But she said very bad things happen to wizards who mess with time if you don't follow the rules. We just don't know what happens when you break the rules.
That's true.
Although that Death Eater does have that thing happen with his head.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember? Where
we do know what happens.
He ends up with a baby head.
We do know what happens when you mess with time. The time cops show up.
Right.
And then they erase your timeline.
Wizarding World website is off canon to me, like J.K. Rowling's Twitter. The baby head. Right, the baby head. The baby head. If you actually want to change, you should do it incorrectly and mess it up.
Yeah. So I guess the best way you could change it is go back and introduce yourself to yourself.
Depends. Yeah, I suppose. That's just creating chaos.
Unless you already met yourself, in which case, just the same thing.
Yeah, the Wizarding World website. But it sounds like that witch who went back 1,000 years didn't do the right thing the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd think you're your own father.
Getting in some Futurama here now.
Well, I mean, that is...
No, Fry was his own grandfather, right?
Yeah. No, he's talking about book 3.
Oh, yeah.
You say introduce yourself to yourself, then you think you're your dad, like Harry did.
Yes, there we go.
That's what happens. There's a fan film on YouTube which involves time travel. I don't mind the time travel in Harry Potter. I think it works. I think it's clean, simple. It works, and then you got to get rid of it in book 5 because otherwise...
You know, you have time turners. Just take that thing, go back to when Voldemort was a child and find him a loving, caring home and give him to them. All the problems are avoided right there.
Are they, though? Or you're surprised at what your hair looks like from the back. Ooh. Wonder if the Marauders map saw 2 Hermione and Rons on it when Lupin looked at it to see them at the Whomping Willow.
Ooh, that is a good question. That's a very good question.
Again, 2 magical things interacting with each other.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a good question.
Wait a minute. Hang on. No. I think Lupin was only looking one place on the map, and
That's true, but they were very close. They were just right in the woods.
Right, but I don't
really know how close the woods are to the Whomping Willow, but assume like kind of, the map. I don't know how much of an area the map covers either.
Yeah, Katie's right. He saw the names, he left. I don't think he would have even, if Hermione and Harry were on the map twice, he wouldn't have seen it.
Maybe.
He just saw...
Would have been great, though, if he did see.
He'd be like, 2 Harrys, Peter Pettigrew. He'd probably just be like, this is broken. And just never leave. This is broken.
Probably. I suck at magic. Throw it away.
But I think Katie's right. I think he saw it, reacted. So I guess it doesn't matter if Lupin would have seen 2 Harrys and 2 Hermiones.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Pettigrew. He saw Peter Pettigrew and was like, what the F? And that was the end of that.
Well, so why would Dumbledore do it if he knew it was a loop? Because it's only a loop if they go back in time. They have to go back in time, otherwise the loop wouldn't exist. And that would actually be changing time by not going back in time. He would change the past by preventing the future.
Was he aware there was a time travel loop for that particular event? And if so, how can he sense if there was a loop of time traveling? All magic leaves traces.
Yes.
Dumbledore planned the loop. Yep. Well, that is also it. He planned the loop. He knows if they do it correctly, it'll loop.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he heard their footsteps running up the hallway.
And right, Dumbledore can sense magic, right? When they're in the cave, he feels the traces of magic.
He smells time travel in the air.
Katie also makes a good point. He sees them at Hagrid's hut.
Oh, yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
So he saw their future selves.
So he knows.
So he already knows that they succeed because he sees them. That's right. That's right.
Okay, so there.
Fair point. But why would Dumbledore plan a loop knowing nothing is going to change? Dumbledore's planning the loop so that
nothing changes. Because he knows
that Sirius will get rescued and Buckbeak will get rescued. If he doesn't plan the loop, Buckbeak gets murdered and so does Sirius.
Yeah.
That would be the change. The change isn't that Buckbeak and Sirius are rescued. That's what happens. The change would be if they didn't go back in time and Buckbeak would be killed and Sirius also would get the Dementor's kiss.
Yeah.
That would be the change.
He comes to the conclusion that the only way they would have been there at the hut
is if he told them to go back in time. Right.
Yeah.
He knows.
Why would he take that risk? So that is a good question. I mean...
Who, Dumbledore?
Yeah.
Well, Dumbledore sees them, right? So I think he knows they got this. Maybe he just has faith in Harry and Hermione.
Maybe it's just a gamble. Maybe he doesn't know,
Well, Dumbledore... what does Dumbledore say at one point? Because of how extraordinarily intelligent he is, when he makes mistakes, they often have much graver consequences.
Yeah.
That was there you go. He plans the loop before events take place. He's planning the future. Nothing has taken place at the time he planned them to go back in time and make the changes. Oh, got you. Why would Dumbledore take the risk? Not knowing.
Oh, yeah.
Dumbledore knows, right? So why would he take the risk that it wouldn't work out?
That's true.
How could the first ever Dumbledore know, though, since he wouldn't see any future Harry and Hermione, as there would be no one before?
That's where, time travel becomes very difficult.
He sees them, though.
Was there ever a first Dumbledore that sent them back and didn't see them? Is there ever a first? Or is it just infinitely that happening, Because time is infinite. Right. So it's hard to say that there was a first.
They don't go back further in time than
he's happening.
Right. They also only go back as far as Dumbledore instructs.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I don't think he would take the risk if he didn't know the outcome. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah.
But yes, that's why time travel...
to that, it's a lot of quantum physics-y stuff that just...
Right, and Katie just keeps saying over and over, it always happened.
Yeah.
That is what it is. It always happened.
There was never a first. There will never be a last.
No, it always happens. Every time it happens. If it's a loop, it plays out that way.
It's
every time.
Infinite times every time.
Right. Dumbledore came up with the idea in the morning, and then the events all took place that night. He woke up and he was like, Minerva, I've got this really great idea. Miss Granger still has that time turner of hers. Yes? Why?
You won't understand. I don't have time to tell you.
I haven't got the time to explain it to you, Minerva.
Oh, man.
But I think that's the only way you can look at it is it. Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. It always happened. That's it. That's how it works.
Yeah, pretty much.
And leave it at that.
It's just hard to not imagine something having a beginning and end.
Right, you have to think about time in a different way.
Yeah.
Don't tell Severus, Minerva. Definitely don't say anything to Snape.
This is going to be the best April Fools ever.
Wait until later in the hospital wing, Minerva. It's going to be quite a show. Don't tell Snape. That's the best thing I think I've seen all day. Don't tell Snape. Oh my god. I agree, Dan. It's a simple answer but kind of a heavy concept.
But it's complicated to explain.
It's complicated, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Infinitely complicated, infinitely simple.
Bring popcorn, Minerva.
St. Lucas.
And on that note,
I think we got to call it quits.
We did run over a bit on time. But this was great. I had so much fun discussing all of this.
I know, this was a good time. Oh, here we go. Hang on. I wonder how old Hermione is now, considering all the time traveling she did throughout the year to constantly attend
classes every day. Did that make her pass?
No, because it's always happening. I'm just kidding.
No, that is actually true. She technically would have aged. So yes, you have a point there. She probably put on a good 5 or 6 months with all the time traveling.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lucas. I don't think we have time for one more chapter. I have to make cake. I'm sorry, I have to make cake.
But thank you all for joining us. It's been great.
This has been great discussion. Thank you for all of your input. And we will see you this upcoming Thursday to keep going with all the young dudes.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.